Hi everyone, you're welcome back to this YouTube channel. Today I'll be teaching us how to make this maxi dress. So let's get started. Okay, so I got 3 yards of striped fabric, and I'm hoping it's going to be enough to make this style. Yeah. So for this style, we're going to be cutting the front and back separately because the neckline is sort of high, so we're going to be needing a zipper at the back. Now this is my fabric here. Okay, so I'm going to be separating both front and back. I'm dividing the fabric into 2. Okay, so we're going to cut out the front first before the back. Now this is my folded fabric. Okay, now you might not see the markings of the choke, yeah, but just follow me. So from here, this is my shoulder line, and I have my chest line, then my shoulder to waistline, shoulder to hip line, and shoulder to the hemline. Okay, so on the shoulder line, I'll be marking half of my across back measurements. Same thing on the chest line. Now on the chest line, I will still be marking quarter of my bust circumference. Then I'll add ½ inch for ease and 1 inch for seam allowance. Okay, it's a maxi dress, so it's supposed to be slightly free, sort of. So whatever I marked on the chest line, which is quarter of my bust circumference, I'll subtract 1 inch from that and mark it on the waistline. Meanwhile, the dress is that less. Then on the hip line, I'll be marking quarter of my hip plus ½ inch for ease before I now mark 1 inch for my side seam allowance. Then on the hemline, because the dress does not have a slit, I'll be marking quarter of my hip circumference on the hemline. Then I'll just add like 3-4 inches, to that measurement plus my 1 inch for seam allowance. So the dress is going to be slightly A-shaped, slightly. Now I'll be connecting the hemline to the hip line to waistline, and waistline to the chest line. Now I know we can't see the markings because of the color of chalk I'm using. So by the time I finish cutting out the front pattern, I'll just quickly go over what I've marked again. Okay, so I'm just connecting like so, and then I'm going to be connecting the shoulder and chest line together. Okay, where I marked half of my across back measurement there. Okay, then now on the shoulder line, okay, I'm going to be marking my neck depth. I'm working with 3.5 inch, and the neck width, same thing, 3.5 inches. So basically, I'm just drafting a basic dress, basically a long dress, but with ease. So I'm just marking out my neckline, okay, and then I'll come down from the shoulder line by 1 inch and create my shoulder slant. Then I'll create my armhole next. So just in case you do not know how to draft a perfect armhole, I'll be dropping a link in the description box. You can watch that tutorial. So guys, by the time I cut this out, we'll have a better look of what I've done. I'm so sorry, I didn't know that the chalk will not be visible. Okay, so I'm just going to cut out, and then I'll be adding ½ inch seam allowance to the neckline, the shoulder slant, and the armhole curve. So let me cut out, and I think we'll have like a better good. This is what I've done basically. Okay, so let me just quickly go over the lines again. Okay, so like I said, this is my shoulder to chest line, shoulder to waistline, shoulder to hip depth, which is 24 inches, and then of course the length of the dress. So on the average, most people from the shoulder to hip line is 24 inches for dresses, please. Now I'll be cutting out the back pattern. I'll fold my fabric into 2, and then we'll be leaving 1 inch on the other side for zipper allowance, I think I'll just move my fabric this way. Okay, I think we can see it better now. So I've left 1 inch for zipper allowance here. Then for the back neckline, it's going to be higher than the front. Okay, so for the back neckline, I'll be coming down by 1 inch on the shoulder line. Then I'll create the neckline. Okay, so and then I'll just add my seam allowance. Good. So this is front and this is back. Now for the front, I will be adding a yoke with the same fabric, but I'll just place the pattern horizontally. Okay, so to make my yoke, okay, from the shoulder line, not from the seam allowance, please, from the shoulder line, the exact measurement here, I'll come down by say 7-8 inches, just something before the chest line anyway. That's 7. Okay, so I'll just use my ruler to draw the style line for the yoke, which is a straight one. Okay, now assuming this was pattern paper, I would have added half inch to the yoke and the dress pattern, but because I'm cutting the yoke directly from the fabric, so what I'll do now is I'm going to cut on that line, the line I drew. So on the main dress, I'll be taking half an inch for seam allowance. So what that means now is my measurement has reduced on the main dress. Okay, so when I'm cutting out the yoke on the fabric I want to use, I'll be adding 1 inch, half inch to join the yoke back to the dress, and then the remaining half inch will take care of the half inch I took from the main dress. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, because you're supposed to add seam allowance to everything. So basically my yoke, I'm going to be adding half inch in summary, so that way my length will be complete back. So you can see the direction of the stripes on the main dress, it's vertical, but for my yoke I would want it to be horizontal so that it's going to be obvious. If the yoke and the main dress is the same direction, then there's no point. So this is the yoke. I'll be cutting it on the fabric but horizontally, and I'll be adding extra 1 inch like I said. Okay, so let me do that. Then I'll be cutting 2 of the yoke. So the second yoke will be acting as the facing. Okay, I hope that is making sense. Yeah, I'm making sense. Okay, so now I'll go ahead to cut out my yoke on my remaining piece of fabric. So this is the lower part of the dress for the front, and here I've already cut out the yoke. So the initial one I cut out, this one, I'm not using this again because this is vertical. I'm not using this anymore, so I'll just discard the first one. So like I said, I'll be taking half inch on the main dress and then half inch on the new yoke I just cut. You can see the extra 1 inch allowance added. So you can see that my yoke is cut horizontally. Yeah, so this will make the design to be obvious. And I also cut a second one that will act as a facing for the front pattern. And then for my back piece here, I also cut out facing. I always tell us facing is the shorter version of your lining. So this is the second back piece. I also cut out my facing. Okay, so we are going to go straight ahead to the cutting of the sleeve, which is the main highlight of this tutorial. For the sleeve, you're going to be folding your paper into 2 like that. Then you're going to mark out the sleeve head, the cap line, which is the distance that will be your bust circumference divided by 12 plus 0.5. That will give you the distance from the sleeve head to the cap line. Okay, then for the length of the sleeve, actually the one I made, the sleeve is actually shorter. Okay, because my fabric was not enough, but I'm working with 19 inches here. Then I added extra 5 inches to the length. So whatever length you're working with, you have to add extra 5 inches. That is what is going to give the first layer of the sleeve that fullness. Now on the On the cap line, I already marked half of my arm circumference, which is 9. Then just add about 6-7 inches to that. If you don't understand how to draft a basic sleeve, you can watch my previous tutorial on how to draft a basic sleeve. Okay, so this is 9 plus 6 for me. Okay, so don't forget, on the cap line, which is the middle line, you're marking half of your arm circumference. So now I'll just connect these points together. I forgot to add one in seam allowance, which I just did. So I'll just connect it together like so, and then create the sleeve head on the pattern. Yeah, so like I said, you can go back and watch my previous tutorial on how to cut a basic sleeve, or I'll be dropping that in the description box, the link to that tutorial actually. So I'm just drawing the sleeve head, and sorry, I didn't know the camera did not capture that part. Sorry. So basically on the hemline here, what I measured is half of my arm circumference measurement plus extra 6 inches. Okay, so definitely you're cutting 2 sleeves. Then when I transfer this to my fabric, I'll be adding my seam allowance. So this is the sleeve. Okay, and like I said, the one in the original picture is actually longer than the one I made. That's because my fabric was almost not enough. Okay, so let us start sewing the dress. First thing first, I'm going to be attaching my yoke to the front pattern, the front fabric. Yeah. So after joining the yoke to the lower part of the dress on the front, then I'll be joining my front and back together at the shoulder. Same thing for my facing. This is the second yoke that I'll be acting as my facing for the front. I'll be joining together with the back facing, shoulder to shoulder, like so. Okay, so I have done that. My dress has been joined together, front and back at the shoulder. Same thing for the facing. So I'll place the facing right side facing right side of the dress. Then I'll go ahead and sew with 1/2 inch seam allowance round. Then I'll also sew here 1/2 inch down. Okay, now that I've done that, okay, this is it. It's not something that is difficult to make. It's like very easy. We'll go ahead to construct the sleeve. So for the sleeve, okay, like I said, you can actually make yours longer. You know, I used about 3 yards. Now I'll be measuring my shoulder to the elbow length. Then I'm going to mark that point on my fabric. Meanwhile, outside the length of the sleeve on the pattern, I already added extra 1.5 inch to the length, okay, to create a casing for my elastic. So that 12-inch mark, I created a notch. Now I'll go ahead to my sewing machine, sew 1 inch down all the way here. Then I'll fold the hemline twice, 1/2 inch. I already added the seam allowance when I was cutting the fabric. I'll sew it round to create the casing. Okay, so here I have created the casing for my elastic, and I've also sewn, 1 inch all the way, but not up yet. Now the point where I have the elbow here, you're going to cut out an elastic that will be your elbow circumference minus 1 inch. Then I'll just pin my elastic to one point of the sleeve, the 12-inch mark that I marked, from the sleeve head to the elbow point. Then I'll fold my elastic into 2 and create a marking, my chalk. Then I'll place that mark at the midpoint like so. I'll still use my pin to secure it together, and of course this other side of the elastic is going to be attached to the other notch points. Okay, now when you want to start sewing, there is tendency for the elastic, when you stretch it to the limit, it might not get to the midpoints. Okay, this is what I'm saying. You can see that the fabric is way longer than the elastic, so you still need to create, you know, tiny small gathers and then stretch the elastic over the gathers or pleats, and then you do the same thing on the other side. Then you measure your round wrist circumference, cut an elastic of that length -1, and then use your office safety pin to pass it around. Okay, so here, this is what I added the elastic, and then I've also created here. So I've added my elastic to the sleeve opening, and then just close it. Okay, then I can go ahead to complete the sewing on my sleeve, the 1-inch seam allowance. I'll just sew it all the way down like that. Then I can now attach this to my dress. Okay, so this is the dress. Now I'm going to now join the front and back together at the side. So I'll just, you know, hold it together like this from the armhole, front and back together. I'm going to sew my 1-inch seam allowance all the way from here down. Then I'll go ahead and attach the sleeve like so. I'm attaching it to the armhole, and I'll repeat the same process for the other sleeve. Okay, so here, my first sleeve, the second sleeve, and then you give it a very good press. Now what is remaining is the center back. So you just go ahead to your sewing machine and sew here down all the way with 1 inch, and then you attach a very short zipper there, and that'll be all. So I'll be showing us the final outcome of the dress now. I hope you love it. Give this video a thumbs up, leave your comments and reactions. Do not forget to share and subscribe. Thank you.